Welcome everyone to our press conference, Women for Climate Justice Leading Solutions. My name is Osprey, Orielle, and I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network, WECAN. And first, I really want to welcome these amazing women leaders who are joining us today. You're going to be hearing from Songole, who is the Climate Justice Coordinator from the African Women's Development and Communications Network, FEMNET, from Kenya. And then we will be hearing from Taily Terena. She's an Indigenous youth activist, and we're very honored to have her as our WECAN coordinator in Brazil. Then we will be hearing from Neema Namadamu. She is our WECAN coordinator in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and she's also the founder of SAFECO. And then we will be hearing from Casey Camp Horinek of the Ponca Nation. She's an environmental ambassador for Ponca, and she's also our WECAN board member from Turtle Island or the US, and we're really thrilled to have them come all this distance to be here to speak at the COP. Grassroots and frontline Indigenous women are gathered at COP27 to strategize and accelerate our collective efforts to halt the worst impacts of the climate crisis, to stop extractivism and protect our lands, forests, water, and our children's future. Also, we do not forget the voices of women and feminist leaders who are not here at this COP, and we carry them with us in our words and in our spirit. We know that solutions exist that can mitigate the worst impacts of the climate crisis, and that women and gender-diverse organizers are truly leading the way. As just one example, studies show that a 1-unit increase in a country's score on the Women's Political Empowerment Index is associated with an 11.51% decrease in the country's carbon emissions. So whether it's on the front lines of resistance to fossil fuels, protecting and replanting forests, creating food sovereignty networks, or advocating transformative climate policies, women are truly leading the way, and we should be seeing way more women in these negotiating spaces. And this is why WECAN is uplifting women and community-led solutions, strategies, policies, and frameworks. It is code red for humanity, and we are drawing a red line to say no more sacrifice people, and no more sacrifice zones, and no more sacrifice countries. We must move forward with a climate justice framework. This is the time to unite together to build the healthy and equitable future we know is possible for each other and our Mother Earth. On every continent, women land defenders are rising, and in some cases, literally putting their bodies and lives on the line to protect Mother Earth, our communities, and all that we hold dear. There is a historical connection to the violence against women and violence against Mother Earth that we cannot afford to ignore, and it must be healed. We are in these patriarchal constructs that have to be dismantled, that is at the core of extractivism at every level and exploitation. So I ask you to join me in standing in solidarity with women's movements around the world, rising as caretakers, as protectors and defenders of our precious planet and our communities. Nature has made it crystal clear that we cannot buy or negotiate our way out of the multiple crises that we now face. So it's critically important to radically imagine a world that we know is possible and to create and fight for that future. And importantly, the pressure and insight of people's global movements are central to pushing forward transformative and bold leadership right now, because we do not yet have the politics in place to tackle the interlocking crises we face. The politics aren't there, so we have to have a different vision, and that's what we're putting forward. We need to draw upon the knowledge and leadership of Indigenous, Black and Brown and frontline women and feminists who are already deeply engaged in solutions. Our WECAN network is speaking out in recognition of the sacred interdependence of the earth, and with the knowledge that business as usual, extractive economic models, and colonialism have ushered in an era of planetary destruction. We are calling on governments and financial institutions at COP27 and beyond to steadfastly commit to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees through policies that prioritize social, racial, and economic justice for all. We are not giving up on 1.5 degrees. Our call to action for gender justice, racial justice, upholding Indigenous rights and rights of nature, calling for a just transition, and immediately keeping fossil fuels in the ground is an ongoing agenda for people and planet. It's an urgent call for our very survival. And we have put out a report for financial institutions and governments called Responding to the Climate Emergency, where we give strong recommendations on everything I just stated. To put this in context, 60 of the largest banks in the world have put $4.6 trillion into fossil fuel financing since the adoption of the Paris Climate Agreement. And a report by the UN Environment Program found that governments still plan to produce more than double the amount of fossil fuels in 2030 that would be consistent with limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. We cannot continue at all with these disastrous numbers. We have recently at WECAN released 2 reports, one addressing the G20 governments that are meeting right now, who are, despite the increasing knowledge that the impacts of climate change vary depending on gender, and the crucial role of women at the center of climate solutions, meaningful discussion of gender marginalization is still lacking in most national climate change policies. So this is very important that they hear and look at their gap and change it. And it should be noted that a recent UN report found that 74% of speaking time at the UN climate negotiations is taken up by men. WECAN has also recently released a report addressing financial institutions, the gendered and racial impacts of the fossil fuel industry and complicit financial institutions, where we're spotlighting the intersection of gender, race, and the fossil fuel industry, and how financial institutions must divest from these dangerous industries and start investing in community-led solutions. We also want to uplift the important demands by the African Feminist Task Force, but I know my colleague will be talking about. Lastly, we cannot move forward without addressing climate finance, which is key to both avoiding and adapting to the worst outcomes of the climate crisis. We must have a way for developed countries to provide compensation for historical emissions and a legacy of injustices between the global north and the global south. There needs to be finance to address loss and damage on top of climate finance commitments for mitigation and adaptation. Most developed countries have fallen woefully short on the $100 billion promised. And even $100 billion is not nearly enough. Research estimates an increase of at least 590% in annual climate finance is required to avoid the most dangerous impacts of climate disruption. So we are calling upon these extreme inequities to be addressed here at COP27, right here, right now. We can't leave here without climate finance and its progression. I want to close by saying that women are rising and we are not waiting. We are working. We are not just here at COP27. We are working in our communities and we are advocating and we are making change and we are continuing our projects on the ground. We can act now and we must act now. And we thank you for joining us today to hear from our speakers. And with that, I hand the floor to you, Songole.
Thank you, Osprey. Thank you to all of us, all of the panelists here, standing in solidarity with communities, standing with one another together, talking to an issue important to the well-being of women. And these are issues of the environment, and this is climate justice. And so I come from a country called Kenya. Of course, I speak in Swahili. Swahili was recently recognized as an African Union language. It's one of the languages that informed my grandparents, my ancestors probably, and it informed their thinking. It is how they were able to view lives. It encompassed their culture, it encompassed all of the things that they thought about, they dreamt about, and the like. We lost it, of course. Osprey did mention a legacy of colonialism is that I'm now sitting here speaking English, and while it's connecting me with you, it's also a loss that I experienced, a loss that my culture experienced, and a loss that my country experienced. And so in Africa, where I work in a Pan-African program at the African Women's Development and Communications Network. We convene women, we coordinate women, we ensure that we put communities at the heart of climate justice calls, at the heart of developing solutions to the climate crisis, which is impacting them in ways that are deeper and more severe than we know. And so from Cape to Cairo, from Morocco to Madagascar, we chanted at the feminist COP just a month ago, talking about the stories that are affecting women from Africa and how the climate crisis at the moment affected our sisters from Nigeria, how they are coping with the climate crisis, how they're thinking about the losses and damages that they've experienced, and how this is impacting them psychologically. And we know, as we sit here as women, as partners, as co-creators, as co-collaborators, that gender equality has not been achieved across all the SDGs. And so today we are very concerned, I am concerned, we are concerned as a collective that the Gender Action Plan is not making progress. And so we are saying here today that it's important for this Gender Action Plan to make progress. And why is it important? Because if we're not able to link gender with all the climate issues that we're facing in all of our countries, then we'll be unable to collect the gender data that is needed. Communities will be unable to understand the linkages between climate and gender at local level and how they're being affected. And so the Gender Action Plan needs to be financed as a matter of priority. And so we say as Pan-African ecofeminists, of course, we have demands that we develop together over the course of a full year. And these demands are important to us because we know that we're not going to achieve climate justice by sitting here and talking, no. Sometimes we have to go further, we have to collaborate, and we have to push one another. And so I'll just share two key demands on representation that are important to us. One on debt. First of all, we need to cancel debt for countries so that they can deal with the issues that they're facing at the moment. Developed countries are unable to respond to these rapid onset disasters because, and they are now getting into further and further into debt because of this. And so this is an important consideration, and this is important even as we're talking about adaptation financing. We don't want debt and we don't want private financing as well. And so another important one is meaningful engagement of civil society. It's important for us as civil society to be fully and completely involved because we have connections, we understand the lived realities of women, and we're able to convene them to connect with these important conversations that we're having here at COP. And what we're taking away from COP is an importance of building movements and making sure that we keep collaborating and coordinating, and we ensure that communities are meaningfully involved in all the conversations that we are going to have, even beyond the COP. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your important comments, and I hand the floor to you, Taily Terena.
Thank you, Osprey, and thank you for my sisters that are here sharing this space. I came here as an indigenous youth from Brazil, and I want to address the importance of the intergeneration dialogue so we can have real actions and real proposals for this planet. If I am here, it's because my ancestors fought for the land and for space that was denied for many, many years. Colonization did that with our people and with the women of my people. We need to understand that all the environments matter, and we need to stop dividing us in regions because we are all interconnected. I'm here with my two sisters from Africa that have a real importance for what is happening in Brazil. And many of you might not know that. Scientists already prove it, and you can see through NASA, for example, that the dust that comes from the Sahara Desert fly to the ocean and goes and feed the forests of the Amazon. And with the Amazon, there is the flying rivers that go to the Cordillera dos Andes and then go to the Pacific Ocean. This is all a cycle that the planet, the Earth, it's really wise to do. And sadly, not people are aware of it. Our elders used to say that and talk about that, but because our science, and I want to address this because here the people say that we have the knowledge, traditional knowledge, but they don't recognize our knowledge as science. Because for you, you need to prove in the lab what we are discussing, but in the end, when you're proving, and you're gonna reach the same point that our elder used to say it. That's why I want to appoint the intergeneration dialogue, because what we speak right now, it's because our elders teach us. I am asking here for women to have higher ambition and also to open spaces. Because as Osprey said, here the talks are leading by men. And what are these men? Who are these men? And who are the women that have space to speak? IPCC report already recognized that indigenous peoples had the knowledge to address and avoid climate change. We have the solution, but yet we don't have spaces in the negotiations or in the dialogues to bring what is happening in the ground and what are other solutions that we are bringing. Women for many, many years are recognized by the spirit of care. And I don't say this as we are obligated to have babies, because sometimes people related these two issues. But inside of us, we were given a bless that we are more connected than men, because nature made us bleed as earth bleeds, so we can have the connection with the spirit world. So in this sense, I want to ask for other women to not lose this connection, to maintain this connection with the earth, and also open spaces that more indigenous women can come and say what they need to say. It's not easy to be here, especially for us that come from really faraway lands, but we know the importance of being here, what it means. Because in my lands that I'm not from the Amazon, but I am also fighting for the Amazon because I recognize the importance of her. And yes, I speak as it is a woman, because all the living beings have an importance role in the world that we are living. So we are asking for no more sacrifice of the women's, no more sacrifice of our own people. We are hoping that the youth can have a perspective, a future, and also for the indigenous youth can also have a voice inside these places. And yeah, sorry, thank you.
Thank you so much, and it's so inspiring to see our youth growing up and being such powerful leaders. So thank you for your comments, Taily, and joining us. And I hand the floor to Neema Namadamu.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I apologize, my voice is really not great because this is stuff climate change. I'm so happy to be here in this big room with those microphones where I take back to my country. I'm from DRC, Congo, in the east part. When, like my dear sister from Kenya say, our mother language is Swahili. In DRC, we have 4 languages. We have a Swahili, national language. We have a Lingala. We have a Kikongo and the Chiluba. That is our legacy in DRC. And also somebody who doesn't know well, DRC is in Middle Africa. and we are in second rainforest after Amazon forest. And also, we got not a good chance. We are so rich, we have those minerals. And I'm coming here to say, please, mining company, to stop a mining company who are in my country. When they come taking minerals, they come with chemical, they do putting in water, because where we live, we don't have running water. We go to a river, and then now they're poisoning our water. And now when people drink and the animal dying and many disease, we really, I want those mining company in the development country to stop that. Secondly, I'm here, like you see my voice, I'm envoy from local community, from thousands, millions, the women voice I bring here, because the women have not yet have access to education in the local, because they have this big knowledge. I bring you big knowledge because we can Congo, we have this knowledge, indigenous knowledge, how to planting trees, how to live. Without trees, we can't have life in DRC Congo. On those remote area, we live naturally. It's why you see my voice change, because this air conditioner, I'm not having to do this air conditioner. This is maybe 1 year I have to live with this stuff. But when I take away again, I wanted to ask the world, we are the women, and African is only alternative to have a solution. And the Congo is really, let me tell you, the solution the country in this crisis. And this is global issues. We must have a global solution. Thank you so much for giving me this time.
Thank you so much, and it's really important, the project that Neema is doing in terms of protecting forests and reforestation. It's not engaged with offsets, and it's a really powerful showing us how a solution around forests can work that supports Indigenous and local communities and is not part of the carbon offset market. And with that, I hand the floor to Casey Camp Horinek.
Zatia, Nijijijizi, Witike, Ponca, Abadi, Mashte, Ponca, Oklahoma. Thank you, my friend. Now my voice is even big like yours. Appreciate it very much. It's always such an honor to sit on such a panel as this with this diverse knowledges, and I thank WECAN again for bringing us together and amplifying the voices of the women here, the Indigenous women. I want to say thank you to the Indigenous women of this territory for welcoming us, because I know through the Mother Earth your instructions are strong and clear, and I'm feeling those every day. I'm also feeling some of the same issues in our territory where we live right now. Not only are we impacted through an environmentally genocidal process of the fossil fuel industry, specifically ConocoPhillips, but these mass murderers are murdering all life on Earth right now. And we must call them out for who they are and what they do. In our territory, they are killing the air, they're killing the water, they're killing the earth, they're killing the forelegs, they're killing the fins, they're killing the things that fly in the air and burrow into the earth. And they're doing it with their poisons that they amplify, because those are natural things, part of natural law that belong inside our Mother, the Earth. The oil and the gas and those emissions that they put out there are not part of the natural laws, ways of being. They're not part of Mother Earth's plans. It's as if, for you at this moment, someone without your permission went inside your body. Oh, wait, that is happening in the U.S., isn't it? You know, where they're telling women's bodies what's correct and what isn't. Yeah. It's as if those power mongers that are primarily old white men, are going inside and they're grabbing your intestines, they're grabbing your blood, they're grabbing your kidneys, and they're squeezing the life out of them, and they're throwing them up for waste. And what happens when that happens? What is the ways of the Mother Earth that we are supposed to be in touch with right now? The ways that we are supposed to be in touch with are those natural laws that govern how we're supposed to live, how we are supposed to be in touch with mitigating this thing called climate change that is, for us in our ways, the purification that Mother Earth must work with in order for there to be a way forward for the generations to come. For us, we are looking at how do we implement and make happen the permanent form on Indigenous issues that are the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous stuff. I started looking at this lady and got distracted, so I UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, has to be implemented. Wanted to say that very clearly. That we need to rescind the doctrine of discovery that has allowed these invaders, these colonizers, to come into our territories and claim what is not theirs and never has been and never will be. We need indigenous solutions of a circular economy that can be possible. For us, we're looking at redoing the earthen lodges that were the way that we were protected not only from the weather, but we also were kept warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And we grew our medicinal plants on top of that. That's something that was taken from us during our forest removal 150 years ago. But we know that with the housing issues that we live in, with the change in climate, with the drought, that those are going to make a difference in how we can reclaim how we live, how our teenagers are going to have to make their own homes without overusing the portions of Mother Earth. We have within our understanding the natural laws, the natural ways, and we ask you, pay attention, because we're your neighbors, and we can, if you help us with our sovereignty, with our ideas, our finances, we will help you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all so much for your powerful words. And let's get women in the forefront. Thank you.